Hello, folks. I'm Jonny McFarlane. I'm back in the hosting seat here at Rangers Review for the first time in a while, so bear with me. I'm joined by the wonderful Stevie Clifford, who's looking resplendent today. He's on a diet. He's telling me all about it. Stevie, you feeling fantastic? You looking fantastic?
Yeah, thanks for that, Johnny. I think that was a secret discussion, but yeah. I don't mind people knowing. Yeah, put on a few pounds, so I'm watching what I'm doing. I'm feeling good for it. So yeah, let's hope that has the desired effect. But yes, Johnny, raring to go. We were both on at 9:25 this morning, raring to go. That's just professionalism at its best. So yeah,
it seems like there's some excitement in there today. I don't know what it is, but Stevie, the reason I bring that up about your diet is because I've got this vision of people looking out their window, hearing a noise at 5 o'clock in the morning, and just seeing a Stevie Clifford shaped blur going past over the next few months as you get that running back up and running again. People won't know this, but Stevie, when he gets to the diet mode, he becomes a bit of a road runner, and this is something you're going to have to look out for in across Glasgow. We won't tell you where. You just keep your eye out, and you might see him. Now, listen, enough of this jocularity, enough of this nonsense. And listen, there's so much nonsense going around. First of all, I'm going to address this comment by Jake551, going by the clip of Russell Martin arriving at Glasgow Airport. It must be him. Jake, I hate to disappoint you or enrage you or make you happy, but that clip is from 2018. So someone was having a bit of a laugh on social media, and that's grown arms and legs. I've had a few messages about that saying, "Oh, Russell Martin's here. It must be Russell Martin, the Rangers manager." It could well be that that's the case, but that is not a video from the current 2025 state of affairs. So we'll get that out of the way right up front and move on to what is the story that was breaking last night on the Herald, which was that Francesco Farioli has had discussions with the Rangers about the manager's job. He's a 35-year-old Italian, comes from the town of Barga in Tuscany, and has basically carved out a career on the back of being part of De Zerbi, the former Brighton manager, now Marseille, his coaching setup. He then went out on zone, worked for a team in Turkey where I think he turned a few heads, moved on to Nice, and then arrived at Ajax. Now, there's a little bit of history there with Rangers because previously, before Michael Beale was appointed, Farioli was talked to and understand was very impressive in those discussions. And I think if Beale hadn't taken the job, may well have been appointed at that point, from what I was told at the time. Stevie, what's your reaction to this story? What's your reaction, first of all, to the prospect of this guy? Because one thing I've noticed about it is the football hipsters amongst us. Now, Joshua's not here. Now, he would have been a good acid test for this. But the football hipsters amongst us, the Adam Thorntons of the world, let's just say they're frothing. They're foaming. They're excited. And that normally tells you that it's a bright young talent being linked with Rangers.
Yeah, the chat was awash with excitement from Adam last night. What do we know about him? I went and looked last night, Johnny. There were some interesting comments on X by Ajax fans. There was a boy called Half Spaced, and he says, personality-wise, very, very strong character with unique ideas. Fans absolutely love him. Passionate team builder, very good at boosting self-confidence. Created a hard-to-beat fighting machine of the worst Ajax team in the last 30 years. Plays a very specific kind of football, which he developed at Nice and played at Ajax. It resembles De Zerbi, slow build-up play from the back. He used Henderson as a single pivot who drops in between the centre-backs and defence. Defensively solid, attackingly a bit boring. So that was interesting. It tells you what we need to know with that. But that's only one person's opinion. I remember the Ajax game from the friendly that they played in pre-season against Rangers when it was 2-1 to Ajax, and it really could have been 5 or 6. And I think that gives you an indication of how Ajax play and the strengths and the style. And they were certainly pacey and attacking against us, although, Johnny, perhaps that's just a bit of where we were as well in there as well. But listen, I think Farioli, for a lot of people, is a really interesting link. And then there's the other side to it. Do you consider that perhaps he's been a late entry to the management discussions, and that's why it's taken a wee bit longer? I'm not going to say that it's stalled because I don't know where we are in this process. I've said it all along, and I've quite enjoyed that. I am not up to date of where this manager hunt is, and I quite like that. The only people that should know are the people in Ibrox, and the rest of us are simply speculating on what's been said in the media and stuff like that. So perhaps there's an indication that Farioli was a late discussion, and that might have held things up for that. But that's speculation on my part. But he would be an interesting, Jonny, a very, very interesting entry into the discussions, that's for sure. Would I like him ahead of others or that? I don't think it's a case of that. I just think he's really interesting. Adam and Joshua, there's a lot of lads on my chat as well that really talk him up a lot and have been talking about him, to be fair, for a good number of years. So, yeah, it's a really interesting one. Of course, 5 games from home with Ajax, he was 9 clear. And that turned out to be, an absolute disaster for Ajax, and they blew it big style. But, positively, he dealt with a lot of big sales. He turned them into a bit of a machine, as that boy said. So a lot of positives, to be fair, with him. And you still have that bit of unknown that you would have with everybody as well. So really interesting, Jonny, I think. Interesting link. And just need to wait and see. The manager's thing, I think, is going to rumble on now for a wee bit at least. So we just need to wait and see where it goes.
Yeah, just interestingly, I noticed there was some quotes that had come out from Arne Slot, Liverpool manager, talking about Farioli and what he did at Ajax. He said, from what I've seen, I think Francesco Farioli is a very good manager. I've heard that he was only defensive and all that, but when I watched Ajax, I always saw a good build-up from the back where they could always find a free man and put their opponents under good pressure. That's what you influence as a manager. Farioli was just unlucky that PSV and Feyenoord had a lot of much, much better strikers than he did. So that was Slot's verdict on it. And I haven't read up on it a little bit, Stevie, because like you look at that 9-point gap that they had going into such a small amount of games remaining, and you think to yourself, well, that's an utter disaster. He must be getting hounded. But actually, the complete opposite was happening. He was getting serenaded, and the entire stadium waiting behind to clap him off. Now, Ajax are like Rangers. They don't accept second best. So there must have been very, very extenuating circumstances going on at that club. And from what I've seen, from what I've read, I think that's the understanding, was that it was a miracle that they'd got themselves so far ahead. Given that the team he had, I think the reason that he's left and they didn't want him to leave was because he felt like they weren't going to back him to the extent that he needed to try and turn around that team, to try and change it. Listen, I'll get some of the comments coming in here, Stevie, just to let you have a sense of what people are saying. Sloop GB says, slow build-up play, that's plenty, which is quite understandable after what we've been watching for the last 4 or 5 years, probably, but maybe there's more to that than you think, given the players he had and he was forced to work with. Gary Love said, Ajax bottled the league under him, no thanks. A couple more positive comments. Darren Kidd saying, people saying he blew the Dutch league. Ajax were way off at the season before. I think they came 5th, folks, and brought them back into the conversation of champions again. Sounds good to me. Bolt Ya Bobag, which seems like a good name for when I'm hosting the show. I would be delighted if Farioli gets the job, more so than if Ancelotti got it. Everyone's got their favourite probably from this selection of players, potential managers, Stevie. It may even be that there's another one that we don't know about, that there's someone else in the background. You've talked about it already. It's been an extraordinarily difficult one for us as journalists because this is a completely new regime, all new people. You know, you don't have the level of contacts that you once had. That needs to be built up over time with trust. So I think what we've seen is we've tried to bring you the information here at the Rangers Review when we found it out, when we knew it was right. But I think if you look across the media, there has been a lot of names thrown in, a lot of twists and turns that are part of the sort of media landscape on the ups and downs of when and where people find information. But I would not rule out this being a complete left field candidate at this stage, and this sort of just underlines it to me. This name coming out. What's your take on it at the moment, Stevie? And I suppose the question I have for you is, do you have a preference from the people that have been mentioned?
It's interesting, isn't it? Because I don't mind saying to anyone, I was very I think early on when the names were mentioned on the list, it wasn't that exciting, because this has been going on now, Johnny, for 3 months. This hasn't been going on, for a long time. This is, or sorry, a short time. This has been going on for quite a while. So, first of all, I don't mind saying to anyone that the heart and head was kind of saying to me, Steven Gerrard might be the safest bet, and there was a part of me as well saying, we've been there before. That still comes with a risk, But there was that counterbalance, and I've added a lot of context and arguments online and things about the Steven Gerrard thing. And that's not me advocating for the that he should have got it or he should get it, but just that was my early feelings on it. And I must admit to being a wee bit turned by Carlo Ancelotti's son. That was the big one, Davide Ancelotti Jr. for me. When he came in, there was a romantic side to that. His dad being so successful, him being such a successful coach. But the risk to that, Johnny, is absolutely massive. And we know about that. But there's a part of me that talks about he could have such good links to players and connections in Europe and things like that. That makes it inviting for me. So that, to me, has always been a really interesting, really exciting one. Russell Martin, I have big concerns over Russell Martin's style of play. I'm not sure that it would be attractive up here. Is he very one-dimensional? That's a concern for me. So I kind of shy away from it being Russell Martin. But then Farioli coming into discussion last night is like a change of opinion again as such, because he's interesting. I'd be lying if I said he wasn't. He's a very interesting proposition. So do I have a favourite amongst them? I think that kind of describes it. I'm like every other Rangers fan, Johnny, that's been pulled and pushed. We've had Danny Rule, we've had Marco Rosa for a time, Steven Gerrard then, and Steven Gerrard now, has been in and out the discussion. Ancelotti has been there and thereabouts. So we've been pulled in all different directions as supporters. But I don't think there's ever been an outstanding candidate for this job from day one where everybody has always, yes, let's go and get him. He's our number one choice. Let's go and get him. Everybody's had multiple opinions in that, which has kept it interesting. And I think everybody's got a different preference. There's so much pros and cons for all of them. I think that's fair, Johnny. But that's a wee bit about where we are as a football club. So it's just, you take Ancelotti, you get that excitement, you get that unknown, but he's also never done it before. How would he cope? You take Farioli, he's exciting, he's got a track record, but he's never really been successful before. Can he get them over the line? Ajax is a big indication that he could at least turn things around. Could he do it at Rangers? Such a short space of time. All sorts of questions. Russell Martin, plenty of managerial experience, but there's question marks over his style. Steven Gerrard, was he really good the first time? Are we talking him up? Are we talking him down? Why would he come back? Etc., etc. Danny Rule, done well at Sheffield Wednesday, but a short space of time. So I think there's an argument for absolutely everyone, Johnny. And that makes it interesting for me. So hopefully that kind of explains my feelings a wee bit. Romantic side of me, I think, probably still looks at Davide Ancelotti as being there and thereabouts because he's been talked about. But I'm not going to lie, Farioli is really interesting to me.
Yeah.
If that's a real link, and if we're really in talks with him, and if there's a chance that he might sneak in as some sort of last-minute serious contender, then I think we have to explore that one. So it's a wee bit open for me, and I'm funny saying this about it, but I'm relaxed about it. I would like to see action, obviously, like everybody else. But
you've gone all Ross Wilson on us. You're relaxed.
I think it's just because it's gone on for so long, Johnny, that I'm just, I'm prepared to wait a few more days at least and see where that turns out.
Yeah, well, we've got another candidate being thrown in, and I hadn't thought of this one, but it's a pretty good one. Gaz Jones said, at this point, I'm shocked if we haven't been linked with Ted Lasso. How do you feel about Coach Beards taking his place in the Ibrox dugout, Stevie?
I've never watched that.
Oh, come on, Stevie.
No, I haven't. Honestly, I'm sorry. I'm too busy watching other stuff. So, no, never watched it.
Whenever I come on these shows and I bring up a cultural reference, people are like Josh, you bring up Goodfellas or Pulp Fiction. He's like, oh, I don't know what you're talking about. At least normally I would expect you to be able to pick these things up.
Never started to watch it. So, but I have obviously watched both films you mentioned. I think I'm quite well versed in certain things.
You're good on the films.
I think so, but not on I don't know what that is. So no.
Obscure Apple TV shows. Nah, it's the first season's excellent, and it goes a little bit haywire after that, in my opinion. But it's certainly worth a watch, Stevie. If you're ever off with the man flu and you're feeling a bit down, it's 10 episodes, they're half an hour each. It's a good entertaining laugh. That's what I would say. In terms of when and where you think this needs to happen in terms of the managerial appointment, Stevie, like it's quite clear this needs to be soon. You know, you look at the dates, and Chris, I think, did a piece a couple of days ago or 2 or 3 days ago about the timings of Rangers pre-season. You know, there's not an awful lot of wiggle room now for a new guy coming in, getting set up, making sure all the ducks are in a row. Now, I'm just going to speculate here, Stevie, and get your opinion on my speculation, but we know that Kevin Thelwell is still an Everton employee until the end of the month. Do we think, potentially, calm down, that through this entire time, that this was always going to be held in terms of the manager until Kevin Thelwell is appointed as the Rangers sporting director or director of football, whatever the title is, I can never quite remember, to allow him to be part of that whole process and to front it up from, as a leader, you know, this is my man next to me. That's my take.
I think it's a very reasonable take, Johnny. And I don't see why there's the kind of side to you as well that thinks maybe Rangers are just sitting back nice and relaxed and got it all sewn up. Maybe they're going to put other things in place, Thelwell, you know, arriving and stuff like that before that gets announced. And I would like to think that it's like a big ball of string, and they're just going to pull a wee thread and it'll all unravel and out it'll come all nicely. And of course, that would be lovely. Not Rangers like in the last 15 years or so, but it would be absolutely lovely if that was what we watched unfold. I think it would be a real signal of intent by the potential new owners as well, coming in, that they would have, you know, be able to go boom, 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 we're ready. New signings are coming in. I would like to think there's a number of them ready to go. Joshua's been quite positive in reporting in some of those names as well. So maybe, and I speculated on this on Wednesday, I think a wee bit with Derek, maybe we are waiting on that. Maybe it is going to be a case of, you know, announcement. These players are ready. We'll be back on the 23rd. Full steam ahead to try and revitalise this squad more. Off we go. And that would be lovely. That would be so un-Rangers-like, but it would be a real clear intent of this is what it's going to be like under this new regime. And it would have made the last 3 months for us very redundant and quite funny in terms of discussing and getting pulled which way and the other by, you know, reports as supporters. So it's certainly an interesting one, Johnny, but I think there's merit to that suspicion, that's for sure.
With Gerrard dropping out, Stevie, the one thing that's clear is that Rangers are going to have a change of style. You know, this is very much going to be the sporting director and the head coach era. That's clear from the guys that are being talked about. Of course, there may be a left field appointment coming, but I don't get any indication that we're going to have a manager sporting director where there's a kind of maybe not a power struggle is the wrong word, but there's kind of an unknown dynamic as to who has the final say. I think it's quite clear that what we're going to have is someone who's dealing with the grass and someone who's dealing with everything else, and then individual departments. And I wonder, Stevie, from a fan point of view, do you think there may be sort of a cultural change or a cultural adaptation that's going to take place over this next season or 2 or 3? If that is indeed, as I say, the model that Rangers are going to stick with and going to go for, where this club's going to modernise and change, and some of the old sort of commonalities and understandings that we have around what works at Rangers and how Rangers operates and how you attack problems is maybe going to change a little bit. Do you know what I'm getting at?
Yeah, and I think, again, that's absolutely fair. I've spoken a long time about perhaps a figurehead. If you look at every successful manager in our history, has been a figurehead. There's not been sporting directors and things up until recently. Steven Gerrard obviously worked with, you know, Ross Wilson, etc., Mark Allen, and they helped him immensely in signings and things like that. But it's the way of the world now. And I think especially if you've got to think about, you know, potentially our new owners and what kind of dynamic they've worked with before and what they think's right and what they think's works. But what it will do and what I'm excited about, and here comes Stevie's favourite buzzword of recent times, and that's infrastructure. They're going to put in a structure, Johnny, at this football club. That means that if, X leaves, then Y's ready, and stuff like that. We cannot be in the position where we've seen in the last couple of years where people leaving and they don't get replaced for a year and 9 months and we're, no chairman, no CEO and all that kind of thing. That can't happen. We cannot be rudderless anymore. So if we're going to go in this new direction where it's, head coaches and sporting directors and then people above them and people to the right and the left and everybody helping to ensure that the main guy, and you can call him the head coach, he's still the manager for me. I think that's just a technical term. He's going to be in charge of, everything to do with our football club, picking the team on the park wise, dealing with the players, and he'll have quite a substantial say into who comes in the door transfer wise and who goes out, etc. Also, so I think I'm ready for it. And the thing is as well that it's not like we can say we're ripping up something that categorically has been working for the last 12 years, because it's not. So we need to embrace this. This is what we wanted. I've talked about it for long enough, Johnny. We've talked about it for long enough on this show, Derek and I, most mornings, Chris and I, Joshua as well. All of us have discussed this. Since the Rangers review started, Rangers have needed change. We have been dormant now for far too long. This needs an adrenaline shot. It needs leadership. It needs the enthusiasm and the belief of people not only in the dugout, but on every level of the football club that believes that Rangers can be what we once were again. And that's what we all believe is support. That's what we all drive for and strive for as well. But people have got to believe it within the football club. And I think that's been lacking. When people start talking about fatigue within, the boardroom and staff members and all that, I think that's difficult. And everybody needs it. We all need that. Within the football club, I think the staff need it. I think the players need it. I think everybody needs it. We need that enthusiasm again. And I'm really excited that we could be on the verge of that once more, Johnny. So I'm ready to embrace it. I'm ready to see what it is going to be like. I'm ready to hear more about it. And I'm ready to get really on board. We've talked about it now for so long. This has been talking about it nearly all of 2025. So it shows how long it's been going on. But to your question, yes. And what about you? Because you've been asking me the questions. But what about you? How do you feel about it? It is a big change for the football club. I recognise that completely. But how do you feel?
I think we're going to go into an era, Stevie, where the management of the club are less reactive to the fans. And I think we all agree that's probably the right thing to do, because what's happened is we've had guys who are absolutely... They are plugged into the club in a way that is extreme, because these are guys who love the club and they've put their money where their mouth is. They've made mistakes, but no one can deny that they stepped in at a time when the club was in difficulty and needed people to step in. But I think what we've seen is that you can sometimes be too close to something. You can sometimes be pushed to react in a way that's emotional. And perhaps what Rangers need now is some cold, hard leadership that looks at things in a longer term manner, that allows Rangers to restructure and refocus, because that Celtic got 4 in a row now, and I think next year are going to be odds-on favourites for 5. We don't know how much this new ownership group have got to spend, but it would need to be a hell of a lot to overcome Celtic, given the gap that there is in quality in the squads at the moment. I don't think it's as big as some people say it is. I actually think it's more orientated around the other games than it is around the big games. I think we see as a Rangers being a Europa League quarter finalist and the overall record against Celtic. That's not really the problem. But to overcome those low blocks, you do need quality, and that is expensive. So that would be my take on what needs to be done going forward, Stevie. But it's an exciting time, and I think the fans that are right to look on this and say that this was needed, and new blood needs to come in and give a level of excitement and a level of invigoration to a team that has been lacking it for the last 2 or 3 years. A lack of energy. I think Dave King used the term investor fatigue, Stevie, and that's the thing that I get most from the last few years. It's just like the ideas have run out. So I think now there will be an element whereby sometimes this new ownership will do things that the Rangers fans don't like. They will make decisions that frustrate people. And I think it's a level of understanding and patience that they're coming into a new environment. They don't understand it intrinsically like the previous board. And by the way, the previous board made some mistakes, regardless of their intrinsic understanding. Let's not start on Sydney as an example of that. So it goes to show you, even sometimes when it's in your blood, you can pull off an error. But I think one of the things that what you'll see is if they give a manager, a young 35-year-old manager, this position, I think you will see them giving that manager genuine time in a way that perhaps hasn't happened in the past. I don't think this new board are going to be quite so reactive to noise. And I know that's a long answer, Stevie, but I suppose I'm trying to get the nuance of it. I think the noise is going to be noise to them and they're going to rise above it. That's what I'm hearing and that's what I feel. And sometimes I think that may be out of sync with supporter expectation and demands. And I think that might take a little while to settle down.
I think that's fair, though. I think that, look, we need to stop having decisions that we later need to correct. I think that's a really big thing. How many summers do we have to repeat and correct? This needs to stop. We need to have a very good summer. We need to have a very good window. And Jonny, you maybe, we have to be realistic. If we sign 8 players, 2 or 3 of them might not work. Yeah. But ideally, you need, if you were to sign 8, I said 2 or 3 of them don't work, but ideally you really need 6. So you can get 1 or 2 that don't fit. That happens everywhere. That used to happen to Walter. I remember Walter signing, having a big summer where, Alberts and Bjorklund and all that would come in and be very good players. But sometimes you got Oleg Salenko, who was, 5 goals at the World Cup and the hottest prospect, and came in and just did not suit our game at all.
It was 6 goals, Stevie. 5 goals in one game.
5 goals, yeah. Yeah, that's right. But my point being, you just might not fit in, and we need to be patient with that a wee bit and understand that, it has to be a very good summer that we can then get to January and go, do you know what? Right, that's been successful. We've now got several building blocks. Let's build again. Get to next summer and be in that position where we don't have to rip up everything we've done. We can then build and move on from it. So that's something that we must ensure that we do. And meanwhile, there's no room to say that this is a project, because it's not. And there's no room to say that we've got years on our side, because we also don't. We have to get it right very quickly. So it's, there's a lot of pressure, but there's also a lot of excitement. As I said, when I've asked for this, I want to embrace it. I've asked for change. I've asked for regime change. I've asked for new enthusiasm amongst the club, and we're finally going to get it. So it's time to see where that takes us, and I'm going to enjoy every second of it.
Okay, we've got 2 or 3 minutes left, Stevie, and we've not discussed the takeover. Tommy McAllister is saying takeover to be announced in the next week or so. Listen, we've talked about this for the last week, and it feels like that we are on Groundhog Day going over and over and over the same thing. I think Stevie's information is similar to mine, is that this is imminent, and I do mean imminent. So we will... I think this is complex, but imminent is what I would say. Stevie, any more to add?
No, I think you've summed that up quite nicely, Jonny. I said the other night on my own platform that it was end game time, and we should be expecting. So that's where we are with it, and I think we just need to see how that happens.
Put it this way, I think the term fakeover is over fairly soon. I don't think we'll be hearing that one again. Or maybe we will. Maybe we will. This is Glasgow after all. It may be a false flag. Listen, guys, thank you very, very much for joining us. Thoroughly enjoyed it. As always, love to be on with Stevie and shoot to the beep, as we say when we're not on at 9:30, but I thought I would just throw it out there. Anyway, thanks to our sponsors who I haven't mentioned, S1 Jobs, because I'm not used to doing this anymore. Follow the job that makes you happy. Go into s1jobs.com and you will get all the information you need for any job change that you might want to do. Right, guys, until next time, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you soon.